around until she gets here. So that we don't have to wait.
All right, well, and it's 9 o'clock, we'll go ahead and kick the show off. Call the January 22nd, 2026, Indiana Recycling Market Development Board meeting to order. And welcome, everyone. And thanks for driving up on a cold day. First order of business is consideration and approval of the.
First, we do have the house.
Oh, you have to do your,
online.
you have to do your online.
I do.
Sorry about that.
No, that's all right. Yep, thank you for those of us joining online today. I'm Deanna Garner, Recycling Market Development Program Manager for Items Office of Program Support. All microphones are currently muted. For attendance tracking, please take a moment to write your name and affiliation in the chat box. We will be taking questions and comments from participants at today's meeting. All participants will be able to unmute themselves and ask questions or make comments at the appropriate times. If you do have a question or technical issue during the presentation, please use the raise hand or chat features. For those on the phone, if you have a question or comment, you can raise your hand by pressing *9, and we will call on you at the appropriate time. When called upon, you'll need to unmute your phone by pressing *6. If any members of the media have joined us, please utilize the chat feature, or you may email rmdpgrants@item.gov with any questions, or if you would like to schedule an interview. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted on Item's website at recycle.in.gov. And with that, I will return it back to you, Bruce.
And now we will move to consider the approval of the October 23rd, 2025 meeting transcripts. Has everyone had the opportunity to review transcripts? Any changes, edits, anything required? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Gratz, do I have a second?
A second.
Sorted, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And moving on, we have an item update from Carl. Morning, is that correct, Carl?
Just a little bit of one. I got a couple of notes from our commissioner. He sends his apologies for not being able to be here today. He was planning to. Obviously, it was on the agenda, but he is at the State House this morning as our agency bill has a hearing today. And that is the update that I received to convey to you all. If you aren't aware, we do have an agency bill that's been proposed, Senate Bill 277, I believe is the correct number. And he is in the State House, like I mentioned this morning. There's a amendment that is being proposed today to remove any changes to the Recycling Market Development Board, and that a separate legislation to House Bill 1003 may also be amended for legislative review to allow sunsetting of certain boards and commissions. So that was the update I received. If you're not familiar or have not heard about House Bill 1003, it was proposing to eliminate quite a few boards and commissions. So that bill is passing through with proposed amendments as well. So that's kind of what he was referring to. I think our bill is like 170 some odd pages long, so it's pretty extensive. So I think Deanna sent you guys a link to both of those bills. So that is our agency update. My Office of Program Support updates pretty short as well. The primary thing I just wanted to do is, as you all know, Pat Daniel retired at the end of September. So she was not here for the October meeting. In that time, since the October meeting, we did fill her position. Pamela Guerrero is our new section chief. So do you want to take a few minutes to introduce yourself and kind of tell them who you are?
Morning, everyone. Pamela Guerrero. And my background is really in policy analysis and federal grants management. I used to serve at the Office of Community and Rural Affairs, supporting all types of sustainable community development between housing, drinking water, stormwater, all the public utilities. So I very much look forward to working with you all and just helping with you manage the recycling. So. Any questions?
Thank you, welcome.
Thank you.
I would just add to, Pam has pretty extensive experience coming from Oprah with federal grant management. She managed upwards of like $30 million annually. So she's going to be a big help with the Swiffer grant that we currently have. And there is the potential for us to receive additional funding from EPA under the Swiffer. So we're looking forward to that. Sounds like the potential allocation could be equivalent to what we received already that Deanna's been managing for us with the materials management plan that's been in the works. So, and I'll let her give her update and then.
Okay. Yeah. Status of existing grants. What we've been talking about in the past, so I'll bring up Floyd County first. And Debbie might know as much as I do, but last time I talked to Floyd County, the plan is for them to be absorbed as into the county. So they will still dissolve the solid waste management district, but they will continue services on a more limited basis through the county. They have that 180-day meeting to actually vote and dissolve the district is scheduled for sometime this month, or didn't.
Yeah, the 180 days actually expired December 23rd, so their next meeting will be
Okay. Okay.
the final, I guess.
Okay, yeah, so, and they will be using the equipment for the grant funding, they will be continue to use it. We funded them for the community outreach trailers that would go into different communities once a week. So they're not continuing that specific program, but those trailers are at their permanent drop-off site, their satellite site, and being utilized very strongly still there. And then they did have a community recycling grant for a baler as well for cardboard. And he said that although they aren't doing their delivery routes anymore to pick up cardboard, the community is still coming to them. So they're still getting more cardboard than ever. So that's good news. They're being able to use the equipment still. As far as active grants, they're all just kind of moving through the process, received progress reports that there are steps either being purchased or being installed. No issues arising there. In fiscal year 26 from our October meeting, those grant agreements are being finalized now, and hopefully those projects will be getting launched very shortly. And then I do have one rather big piece of update that I have to give you guys. On a more personal note, my last day at IDEM will be January 30th. So this will be my last. I knew I was gonna get emotional. Sorry. This is gonna be my last board meeting with you guys. I've really enjoyed my time with you guys and hope that we can connect. I'm still gonna be in materials management, recycling, sustainability world. So I'm hoping that we'll stay connected and I'll see you guys still and work with you in the future. So.
On behalf of the board, we can't thank you enough for all of your efforts and contributions to our success as a board.
Yeah.
And just everything you've done for IDEM. So thank you so very much, Leanna.
Yeah.
I wish you the best of success and luck and good fortune.
Thank you.
Tough one to follow up on. Now we're waiting on Brianna.
She did just arrive here now, so we,
Oh, she is?
Yep.
Okay. So we're prepared to go ahead and make that the next item on the agenda?
Yep. Yep.
Do the, Miss Brianna Taylor, I apologize if I mispronounced that, with our financial update.
I don't have a clicker or anything, so I can just kind of click. It's right there, yeah. Oops. Right.
So I am Brianni Towler, and I am the Chief Financial Officer for IDEM. I'm just gonna go over a few of our updates for this year. Just a little bit of an overview. The RMDB receives its money through the Recycling and Promotion Assistance Fund, which has been around since the early 1990s. It is reported, as far as that revenue, it's reported by the disposable facilities on their solid waste quarterly fees report. Solid waste is disposed in state, or disposed of in state is charged at about 50 cents per ton. And of that, it's then, that fee is split into two parts, where 25 cents goes to the Recycling Promotion Assistance Fund, and the other 25 cents goes into the state into the Solid Waste Management Fund. Since its beginning, over 38 million in grants and loans have been awarded to the recycling, awarded by and through the Recycling Market Development Board. From that, we have over 346 projects that have essentially helped build local recycling markets, increase recycling revenues, and created jobs as well. And then this is just kind of showing a little bit as far as the breakdown in regards to that fee as described earlier. It is split between the two, and then used to give out towards those projects as decided by the board. All right, awesome. So fiscal year 2025, we had the receiving account of the tipping fees. 50% of that then goes into that program in which 2,200,000 is appropriated to support the grant program itself. So on the next slide, we have kind of the funding trends in regards to that revenue fee to the appropriation. So pretty much it's relatively stagnant, pretty consistent. In the last 5 years, it's hovered roughly between 2.3 and 2.6 million in regards to the revenue fee that is going into it. And then we have had that 2.2 million mark as in regards to the grants given out of the standard, and then had that Central Indiana Waste Diversion program as well. So that accounts for some of those changes in the disbursements. Right now, roughly year to date, we have received about 1.5 million of that revenue of the typical 2.5. So as far as the actual fiscal year 2025 revenues, the State Solid Waste Management Fund saw a revenue of $2,572,864. And the Recycling Promotion and Assistance Fund saw $2,539,497, in which there was a total revenue seen across those two fund programs of $5,112,361. I also have the cash balances at the end of fiscal year 25. So last summer, the State Solid Waste Management Fund ended the year at $6,539,051, and the Recycling Promotion Assistance Fund ended its year at $15,518,000 and $195. So that is essentially my update in regards to just fiscal year end of 25 and where everything is sitting, and I'll take any questions.
Doesn't seem strange that we have such a low balance in the solid waste fund in comparison to the recycling fund. And how do we get more money appropriated to the recycling efforts that we're making within state?
Right. So Not necessarily. So that balance, it has ebbed and flowed over the years. In regards to the revenue that the State Solid Waste Management Fund gets in compared to its expenses, it does already revert an amount, currently into it every year. So as far as increasing that appropriation, it is relatively right sized. However, in regards to, giving out further additional grants, that may be an opportunity there, to increase that cap. However, we just want to be mindful not to, overdo it past the revenue. But that would also reduce what may revert and kind of maintain the balance as well. So it just kind of depends on the goal there. If the goal is to maintain a really low balance year over year, in regards to, if something were to happen or revenue cut back or anything like that, there definitely is opportunity to give out a bit more grants, but there is kind of a bit of a threshold there, just because the cost in regards to administration of the grant program, does go up year over year. And so because of that kind of continuous uptrend, there is more of a threshold there. But there is, I guess, leverage there for something like that.
My biggest concern, and some of us have been on this board for a little bit of time,
Mhm.
and we've seen whenever someone sees, 15 million sitting in a fund,
Mhm.
there's a lot of things people want to do
Mhm.
with $15 million is sitting stagnant. Because we're basically replacing our $2 million annually with new inbound fees.
That's right.
I don't want to give crazy wild, but another $500,000, one would think would be, reasonable. And that may be another 2, 5, 3, 5 grants to help with our recycling efforts. So just a thought, I hate to see it ever again get kind of swept into the general fund as it once was.
Yeah, I mean, in regards to that, I mean, the Central Indiana Waste Diversion is a great example of something that was a program that was implemented to kind of help draw down. Definitely, I mean, there's opportunity for things like that for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments, board members?
Not in regards to finance, but I'd just like to get a better understanding of the IDEM bill. I didn't dig deeply into it, but my understanding is it's just kind of, IDEM has sat down and looked at all of the boards and just realizing that maybe some of them are antiquated or what, so what is the premise behind it?
Well, I know for what I know, because I wasn't a part of the entirety of, drafting that, just only the parts that affected OPS. We were looking at it from the lens of, are we doing these things that are in statute? Because a lot of the statutes were written in the early 90s. And there was a lot, at least for, just speaking to our Office of Program Support, there were a lot of things, for example, under our pollution prevention statute language that it's like, I don't know that we've ever done some of this stuff. Like it was written into statute, but I don't think it was ever implemented. So, removing some of those things because we haven't done them in the last 40 years.
Gotcha.
So that was kind of my understanding of how we were looking at things from OPS. And that's sort of what we were asked to do, is look at aligning how we're operating today, and does the statute authorize us to be operating that way? Or do we have things in statute that we're not doing anymore for whatever reason, because we don't have the funding to do it any longer, or we never did it? So that's kind of where we were with OPS. I really can't speak to the other program offices and what they looked at and why they made changes that are proposed in the bill.
Mhm.
Because we all kind of were doing that separately with our general counsel, and commissioner, and chief of staff, and some others that were kind of leading that for the agency, so.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I assumed. I mean, being that it was an IDEM bill and it wasn't someone else
Mhm.
coming up with this bill to change all these things. So
Yeah,
that's good. It's good to look internally, right?
Yeah.
And make sure you're
yeah, I
doing
mean, it
things.
honestly was a good exercise even for me. I mean, when I came into this role 3.5 years ago, I kind of read through the parts of Title 13 that apply to all of our programs. But I I don't look at it every day unless if something comes up that requires us to look at it. So to kind of go through it all again was a really good exercise for really all of us on senior staff, because again, we don't read through it every day from front to back. So it's usually when questions come up, right? That we end up looking into it and digging into it. Okay, what does this say again? Like, because in different words can make it a whole different meaning.
Sure.
Depending on how you read that. So, yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
Other questions? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Brianna.
Next item on the agenda. We have next cycle, Mr. Matt Fletcher.
He is gonna be remote.
Oh, that's right.
He decided
Here I
not to
am.
travel.
Right, it was probably a good day not to travel from northern Michigan. That's for sure. It's cold and wintry. Is Deanna's my audio on?
It is, we can hear you just fine, thank you.
Great. You want me to get going? Just launch right in?
Well, I guess I can introduce you real quick a little bit.
Okay.
During the last opportunity we had to look at Bruce, you just mentioned that $15 million in our funds sitting there. We're looking at opportunities to spend that down. We talked about whether we wanted to do studies, whether we wanted to look at other opportunities or research. And we also talked about maybe looking at some sort of recycling accelerator option. And so I've talked to Matt off and on about Next Cycle in Michigan. And Next Cycle has actually been in several other states as well. And that board expressed interest in learning a little bit more about the program and get some ideas on how we might be able to do something here like that in Indiana. So I asked Matt, he graciously accepted to provide a little bit overview of their program in Michigan. So Matt Flechter, he's kind of my counterpart there in Michigan, and I'm happy to have him here. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if you could see my camera. I just turned off my screen for a second as we're getting organized here. Congratulations. My gosh. That was a surprise to me. It's been good growing old with you, Deanna. It's nice to have such a good partner. I'm gonna walk through some slides as soon as I can get them figured out, so you don't see so you see the right screen sharing, right? But I really appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to you. It looks like that's gonna work, isn't it? Let's see if I do this. 1 second here. Can you
Yeah.
give me a thumbs up if we are looking at the
Presentation looks-
correct slides?
Yeah.
Okay. Just 1 second here. Just 1 second. Let me get you out of here. Thank you for your patience as I gather this up. Let's see if we can drag this one over. And 1 second. Deanna, fill some time here while I figure out why this isn't working, and I'll get it going here in just
Yeah,
a
that's
second.
Oh, no.
Which slide is there right now?
It was the very first slide, with your picture and the introduction of Next Cycle. That's what we were able to see.
But we don't see anything now.
But yeah, it's back to you. I think you stopped screen sharing.
We'll just do it. Let's see if we do this. Let's try this now.
It looks
There.
good.
What is
Yeah,
that one? Do we have a nice
That's-
rainbow picture over some? Is there a rainbow picture?
There is a rainbow picture, yes.
Yay! Okay, I can fill the time now. I'm gonna walk through. You gave me about 20 minutes, is that right? Or do you want me to cut it
Yes.
short? Okay.
20
Perfect.
minutes is-
So what I'll plan on covering, Deanna gave me some three good questions. What is the Next Cycle model? What resources and commitments were needed to launch the Next Cycle program in Michigan? And any best management practices that I could recommend? Three great questions, and we'll run through that real fast. I'm Matt Flechter. I live in Northern Michigan. For the past 25 years. I've worked to make sure those materials that businesses put at their loading docks or residents put at their curb find their way into new products made here in Michigan. I work at that perfect intersection that all of you do, that intersection of environment and economy, being able to tell the story of how the work that we do creates jobs, it protects the environment, and it's something that anyone can do. And I know that you do this work, and I've really enjoyed seeing the work and how your program has evolved, what projects you have invested in. And I'm going to tell the quick story of how we got to where we are in Next Cycle, Michigan. But first, a little bit about recycling and organics in Michigan. We have a long history, just like you do in Indiana, of environmental protection and manufacturing. We deploy about $15 million a year directly to businesses and communities through grants. Our short story is we had a governor's recycling council, similar to what your organization is there, your market development council, every group. And the work, you advise the department, just like our council advised the department and said, we need a funding mechanism. We need ways to invest. We need an education campaign. We need to grow our infrastructure, and we need good policies at the local and state level. So that's what our Governor's Recycling Council recommended. Part of that was recycling market development. In the early days, back in 2015, we were designing what was called Recycle by Design. It's business accelerator incubator, just like Next Cycle Michigan is, that I'll talk to you about in a second. And we were primarily at that point didn't have funding. We had a total investment of about $250,000 to do the entire recycling program back in those days. We did not have funding. We did not have staff. We had me, and we worked to do fundraising, to work with businesses to identify how they could invest in the recycling market work that we were doing. But then the Flint water crisis happened. All hands on deck related to environmental protection, and the work that we were doing on recycling market development really took a pause. I spent a lot of time in Flint working on the recycling program there. And at that point, the organizations that we had engaged, and Resource Recycling Systems in particular, took the concept of Next Cycle Michigan and took it to Colorado. And they launched a small program there. And it was wildly successful. Our counterparts, Deanna, in Colorado were really pleased with connecting the economy and the environment through building that ecosystem of recycling markets. In March, we then started up our work to rebuild or to build Next Cycle Michigan at that point. And that was 2020. I went out to Colorado, March of 2020, and we all know what happened there. So this has been a 10-year journey to get to this phase. We launched in 2020, and now have had almost coming up on our 200th team that we've incubated and supported, and then ultimately funded in some way through grants. But we use data to guide those opportunities. The first thing that we did, and one of my recommendations, as Deanna asked for recommendations, is really work hard to start with a base level of data, invest in it. Do the things that all of those states that are looking at an extended producer responsibility, including Michigan, did first, which is look at the data, identify do an opportunity analysis, if you want to call it, or a gap analysis, looking at where material is flowing, what is your current access, what is your policy landscape at the local level, what's happening particularly with organics, thinking about your processing infrastructure, your end markets, gather the data, do the analysis, stand on a firm footing there. We know that Michigan's recycling rate is currently 25%. We're going up at about 1 to 1.5% a year since the beginning of our initiative. We have a goal of 30% recycling by 2029, and by all accounts, we are going to make it. That is a municipal solid waste recycling rate, so it includes residential and commercial material. We know how much is disposed, and we know how much is recoverable because of our gap analysis. And we also know what the potential economic output is for that investment that is being made by businesses and communities to grow our circular economy. And that's $33 billion of potential economic output. And what that means is we're on par with tourism in our industry or in our state. So it's a big industry. So Next Cycle Michigan, what is it? Why do we have it? What are we doing with it? The Next Cycle Michigan is an accelerator. These are business accelerators, and they're accelerators in all types of sectors. This is the first, as we know it, at the scale that Next Cycle Michigan is taking it, to be solely focused on circular economy. We have our partnership network. So one of the things we recognized was we needed to have a place, because we were doing that early on. I called it fundraising, but it was really just getting financial support to invest in the teams so that we could direct, if you have a problem and you need a solution, you could connect that and make sure that it is funded by philanthropic, by private business, as well as local governments. We knew on that point, that Michigan was not going to be able to build a complete circular economy on the backs of government. It wasn't going to happen solely through investment at the government level. Of course, that is a very important part of it, but it also needs private industry to see the benefit and see the benefit of those materials coming back into their recycling and manufacturing ecosystem. And as far as the accelerator platform goes, we knew that there were good ideas in Michigan and not in Michigan. So we use it as an attraction play. So we attract businesses from around the country who are thinking, I want to start up a circular economy business. I've got a robotics business, or I've got a packaging reuse opportunity, or an organics collection and processing opportunity. So we use that to attract businesses, get them set up here, supported, and ultimately grow our end markets. The important part of this slide is it is a partnership. Another key recommendation. Think about your major players that are already in this space and bring them in early. Do not compete with the existing work that's being done. And that is why we have particularly Centropolis Accelerator, which is a university who's in this space, the clean tech and circular economy space. They're doing work already in that, and also the state recycling organization, the Michigan Recycling Coalition. Invite those people to the table as you're designing this. They will be able to attract, because they're probably already trusted, those people in that ecosystem. Bring them to the table, listen to them, and allow them to build this with you. So our partnership, we fund it. RRS is are the people doing the majority of the work. Our advisors are MRC and Centropolis Accelerator, and they also are supported financially with their time to do the work, to set up the events, and do the technical assistance that's needed. So the way that I see Next Cycle Michigan is it enabled us to multiply our staff, do more work, be in more places, and get more outcomes. It has accelerator tracks, it has data mentoring. We focus on public-private partnerships and attracting private funding. We focus on equity, circular economy, work that I've already mentioned, but we also connect to energy and climate, making sure that we're talking not only about the circular economy ecosystem of those materials, the green energy economy, but also seeing those direct benefits to greenhouse gas reduction by having a circular economy. We have impact all across the state. As I mentioned, we're coming up on 200 teams that we've supported. Here's some examples to show you that we're working in the public sector and private sector space. We're working in the organic space, working in food rescue, and we're working in energy, the energy sector as well. Here's an example of our teams. We have, this is just our current cohort that we just announced. This is a fresh slide. We just had our kickoff meeting this week. The recycling technologies and organic solutions tracks, we have 6 different tracks that we're working through to attract teams, specifically whether they're private sector, public sector, or led, or if they're focused on organics. And this latest recycling technologies track was surprising to me when we did our selection, in that we're starting, I think, let's see, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 8, 7, I think 7 of the 8 teams, if I remember right, are from out of state, which I think is saying something, that we've gotten the point that we are attracting businesses and supporting them to set up shop. They're required to have their investments in Michigan, to put dollars directly into Michigan, have a location in Michigan. You can't just you can't just take the money and stay outside of Michigan. It has to be spent. The project dollars and the technical assistance has to be spent in Michigan, or implemented in Michigan. So here's an example of the teams. Karen O'Brien's with the Michigan Recycling Coalition. There's me up in the corner. We've got a bunch of really smart technical assistance providers, coaches, as we call them, experts. And Elisa Seltzer is the program lead, with Kira Higgins doing the majority, or not the majority. Elisa works really hard too. But we've got a great team. Let's see. Program schedule. This is an example of how the process works. It's a 6-month track. And we kick it off with a 2-day, what we call Accelerator Academy. And it ends in a pitch and a showcase where we are attracting investors, just like any other Shark Tank-like pitch session, where they're sitting there, they're learning about what those projects are. And here's the big thing for me, is what we were realizing is when we put out our market development grants early on, when we first got our money, before we were launching, this is back before 2020, in 2018, we got Renew Michigan funds of about $15 million a year. We designed a grant program. And we were recognizing that the people that were getting the grants were the people that already didn't actually need the grants. The people that were being selected were those that the projects were more likely to already go forward. But the reason our selection process was favoring those projects is because people kind of had their story down. They had their pitch, they had their partners. They were a safe bet, right? And that's what we want to do with our state dollars, is we want to have safe bets, safe investments. We don't like risk in government. So what we did with Next Cycle Michigan, I believe the strongest, most important part of Next Cycle Michigan is we've got our teams getting organized, getting that technical support, figuring out what direction they want to go, finding those partnerships, and then getting ready for grant making, for our investments. And so we've got this constant pipeline of new projects that are growing. And we do that through the Accelerator Academy and the practice pitch prep that we give, the technical assistance that is provided not only on how to design your recycling program, but how to tell your story. Then we do a showcase, as I mentioned. And that showcase, it's one day, it's a couple of hours. We pay for, some hors d'oeuvres, and it's a good networking opportunity. Types of consulting and coaching support that we have. And it runs the gamut from financial, looking at to storytelling, as I mentioned, to technical, like how do I build the thing. So it depends on the project, but we tailor it specific to the team. We also bring in matchmaking support and partner dollars, like I mentioned, and we're able to connect in markets with a solution. And that's most recently, we worked with our major energy utility to allow a place for them to invest and provide a prize for a wood waste or windmill blade team to be supported, and then ultimately pitch and decide if they wanted to invest in that. But getting that team ready, attracting those teams, and finding a solution that they're challenged by. So recap, recommendations. I think I covered what the next cycle model is. The resources and commitments. I think that the best thing for me to do for you would be to, get you our contract, get you what the spend is. And so if you're interested in going that direction, you could actually see the actual contract, what the expense is, and you could design it for yourself. As far as best management practices go, I think one of the best thing that I can say is scale it for what's right for you. We were able to launch into something a lot bigger than I think any other state could, because we were ripe and positioned to invest a large portion of that $15 million directly into this ecosystem development. We chose to move a large amount of our funds that were received by the legislature into developing the system rather than going into specific projects. That said, we also had enough money to spend on direct projects to communities. We do CART grants, we do education campaigns, we do specific, we spend about $3 million in it specifically to the market development projects that come through this team. And also, by the way, we set it up so you don't have to be a selected team to access the market development or infrastructure dollars. It just helps because you've got the teams have a good background and they can put together a good pitch. So scale it. I already mentioned, build your partners first and base it all on data. So that's what our success looks like. I'm really pleased with the work of the team, how we've built this. I think we just re-upped it for another 5 years. So we are currently working we received a SMART grant through DOE on batteries for developing the battery consumer, primarily rechargeable battery ecosystem. And so we are taking this tool and we are building out a track specifically on battery recycling. So that's an example of how this evolves. But what does success look like? It looks like strong impact to communities, filling those gaps that we found in the gap analysis, attracting investment, increasing infrastructure and markets, and growing that robust circular economy in Michigan. So there we go, 20 minutes. I think we almost hit it, right? But I can answer any questions you have.
Any questions from board members?
I have a lot of questions.
Go ahead.
Go right ahead,
I
guys.
was just starting to take them, so I don't forget them. Thank you for the presentation. This is really intriguing to me. My first question is, what are the qualifications for somebody to get into the Incubator Academy?
Yeah. Okay, so we do an application process. One of the things that we recognized early on that you recognized, and in fact, I think I talked to Deanna and others, is what your role is as far as reviewing and attracting new teams. It's an application process. So as far as specific qualifications, you have to have a good idea to move material into the circular economy in Michigan. We look at that pretty broadly. As you probably caught, we think about waste prevention and waste reduction activities as well as recycling. We think about that as a total ecosystem of making sure we're reducing the amount of waste generated and disposed. And so the qualifications are pretty broad. I mean, come with a good idea and we're going to help you incubate it. We're going to help you grow it.
And do you know what, of the people that come into the incubator program, what percentage of them end up getting private funding?
I don't know, but I could make some pretty good guesses, that the ones that make it all the way through and they decided that their team is still moving, they're all getting some level of investment. So out of the 200 teams, we do, to speak definitely candidly with this group, we do have teams that come in and they said, nope, this is not for me. I thought I had a good idea. I'm going to go a completely different direction. It's pretty rare. What's more common, and almost probably more common than the alternative, is they come into the incubator, they realize they didn't know something about the ecosystem. They didn't know who else was there, and they match up and find these partners to grow their idea with somebody there, and that ultimately changes the direction. So somebody may be thinking, I really want to get into reuse, and then they realize that the product that they're buying, there's no the type of reusable food service packaging or something. That's not recyclable. So they want to design a recyclable food service packaging, for example. So they realize something and they go a different direction, and then that opens up new doors. Because they're in this ecosystem, they're able to connect with additional partners and funding. So I think I'm going to go back to our RRS team and ask them specifically if we have any data, because we surveyed them and we do these networking meetings where we bring everybody in to keep that momentum going. So we'll at the showcases, we invite all the previous teams, and it's so fun to see them show up and still hustling, still trying to find those partners and additional funding. So there's but I think we could ask them that. That's an excellent question.
And then does the state pay for everything related to the incubator program? And then at the end, the hope is you're sort of passing them off to get private funding to take to the next level?
The first part is absolutely yes. We are funding through a contract that we put out for bid back in 2020, I think it was. 2019. It was before I went out to Colorado. We did a selection process to find contractors. Ultimately, that's how we got these additional partners built into it that I mentioned. And then our hope has always been, and through the design, was that we would be a smaller funding partner with those. But I think what's happening is we are still the teams are very dependent on the grant funding. We just have lower risk grants. So I think we got to win there. Even though we're still spending more money than I would like to ultimately spend on those grant programs. I mean, if I had a magic wand, we'd do an incubator, we'd send them out to the world, and then we'd have all the Shark Tank investor types paying for their project, but they're still coming in and looking for state grant funds. So it's a both. I would say right now, based on our investments, the direct investments, there's no way we would be able to get, with the amount of money that we have, the total amount of investment that those teams are putting into the state. we're seeing these multiplier effects from these teams where they're getting their idea incubated, and then we've got all the, we've got a great ecosystem in Michigan for economic development. So we've got the local economic development teams identifying additional funding. We definitely had a lot getting federal funding in recent years. But I think it's the answer to your question is it's creating places where we can all invest. And that's one of its benefits is we've got those teams that people can invest in and getting them ready.
And I know you said the Michigan program is bigger, so maybe this is a question more so for some of the other states, but like what is the cost of running this incubator program? You mentioned you have a contractor
Yeah.
that facilitates it. And it's
Yeah,
like a
I mean, I think overall, if you average it out, we're spending about 1.5 million a year on since its beginning on all of the administrative functions of the technical assistance, the paying for the hors d'oeuvres at the events. I mean, just all in. We also give equity. Equity was a major component of our of how we designed this. We wanted to open the door to all recycling businesses or ideas. And so one of the things that we did is we consciously looked at ensuring that there was travel expenses and hotel expenses so that we weren't selecting teams that didn't have the ability. So they have the ability to get reimbursed for that. So that's another expense. If we scaled it and we've got multiple tracks going at once, we've seen the benefits of it. We've seen what the outcomes. And I'll tell you this one more recommendation. Don't make sure you're constantly doing what I'm doing right here. Tell the story about what's being accomplished. So that when the legislature says we're doing what with what, you're able to have specific projects that you can point to that were incubated through the project, through the contract. So yeah, that's how we're working.
Okay, and I have one more question. So we've definitely had applications where it was a great idea, they just weren't ready to pitch. And I
Right.
think this is an awesome program for that reason. Because you probably are getting all kinds of different applicants and there might be a lot of things that they
Yeah.
don't know,
Yeah.
What have been sort of the biggest lessons learned and
Oh my gosh.
for the.
So one of the things that I was most surprised with was when we would interview people at the end about what their biggest benefit was. I mean, the end, like they've gone to market. Since we've got so many years, almost everybody first started with the networking technical assistance and like just sitting down and focusing on what story they were trying to tell and organizing these budding businesses. Everybody pointed to that. It seemed like I actually thought everybody was gonna be like, yeah, because of this, I was able to get this funding investment, or I was able to find this funding partner, or I was able to get a grant. That's what I thought people were gonna say. And it was eye-opening to me because I come from the recycling science side of things. I didn't come from economic development. That it's not the money that makes the big difference. And so that kind of changed my mindset about what we're doing at the state, that it's not always money that unlocks additional capital. It's knowledge, partnerships, technical assistance. It's telling their story that unlocks that. It's getting in the right room with the right people with the best idea that they can. And so that's one of my biggest takeaways is that the investment that we're making in these teams is helping them build their business, which is exactly what a good market development program should be doing. It shouldn't be what one of my main goals was to get us so we could have de-risk our funds, which I think is also really important. But it's not going to get us the ultimate goal because, as I mentioned, we can't do this on the backs of government. We don't have enough money to grow the $1 billion that are going to be invested in the circular economy in our states in the coming years. So we have to create strong businesses that can thrive and go out and tell their story and attract those funds on their own.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other questions? Matt, thank you. It was a wonderful story. Congratulations on your accomplishments. Fairly exciting.
Yeah,
Yours
thank
is-
you.
Makes
Feel
me
free.
feel like we're doing very
Let me
well.
get.
Yeah.
Let me get. Make sure you have my contact information or send it out to the group if you could, Deanna. And also send. I want to talk to you about
Yeah, we'll touch base.
about this. I mean, I'm a few years out, but I want to hear how you're going. So,
Thanks,
that's-
Matt, for
yeah.
sharing that story. It's inspiring, you know, we've been counterparts with Michigan for a long time. And when you got this kind of influx of support and money from the governor's office, it's been exciting to see the progress, the amazing progress you guys have made in really a few short years.
Yeah,
So,
I'm pretty happy with it. And I think that I've been really impressed with the work that, that you've been doing in Indiana. I think that the fact, okay, let me just tell you, I'm jealous. I don't have a governor or an advisory council anymore like what you have. I was so frankly envious. I know maybe some of the staff in the room aren't, but the fact that you had your financial manager stand up there and show this is where we're at, this is where we're going, that clarity. I mean, that is something you should all be really proud of and hold on to. Don't let this board go, because ultimately it creates dialogue and accountability. And I really want that back in Michigan. I think we had that, and it's what got us to the phase that we are now, because you've got champions like all of you in the room for this industry. And so keep going. Don't let the board go. And keep telling your story of what you're investing the money in, and showing that level of accountability. So maybe you can bump that number up.
fingers crossed. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna leave now. Feel free to reach
Okay.
out. All right, bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Who's gonna follow up that success story? Next on the agenda, we have Pam Francis from Board President for Circular Indiana.
Yes.
It's gonna give us an update.
Yes. I think this is a great actually segue, because Matt was just talking about building partners and their work with the Michigan Recycling Coalition. So Circular Indiana is our counterpart here, and so we're excited to hear what you guys have been working
We're gonna
on.
miss you.
Oh, thank you.
We're gonna have to find a new contact.
Yeah.
Just as a side note, there is a company here in Indianapolis called Elevate. I don't know if you know them, but they do that. But they do it with state dollars, and the requirement is that they have to sell the entity. So the investors require that entity be sold. So that's the only caveat, but it might be a good contact if you want me to connect anybody, to see how those things get set up and work and so forth. So I'm with Circular Indiana. I'm the current board president. My name is Pam Francis, for those of you who I don't know. And we just thought we would come and give you an update on what it is that we're working on. We have not had our strategic planning session yet this year, but I thought I could share what is on kind of our starting agenda for that session. And I did send you a slide. I don't know if you can look it up, but I don't know if anybody can even read it, but I've got it here as well. So there's a few things that we're focused on. Primarily, Circular Indiana focuses on education. And we do that through lots of formats, but one primary avenue is with collaborating with other stakeholders to educate. We do not have a staff. We are about 12 board members who are all volunteers, and we have very little money. So it limits what we can do, but surprisingly, we can do a lot without much money. So you know, we're in a fortunate situation on that note. The first thing that we have on our kind of planning session agenda is the conference. So we've held an annual conference for the last several years. It has gotten really good feedback. People seem to really enjoy the content. This past year, and I should point out that we've been gifted the space that we use. We have been at the government center. IDEM has helped coordinate that for us, which is a really great gift because we don't have the money to pay for the space. So we wouldn't have been able to have our conference if it hadn't been for IDEM. But this past year, we focused on extended producer responsibility and specifically around batteries. And got a lot of good feedback on that. It started a ball rolling with a couple of legislators to write a bill that would define parameters around the proper collection and recycling of batteries in the state of Indiana, which is really critical. And I'm sure you all know this, but because of mostly the safety hazards, but also it sets a framework for future projects too. And that bill actually was heard yesterday in the House committee. And it passed, so it will now be read on the House floor and then go to Senate. There are still some things in that bill that we need to work on, but we think it's a significant step in the right direction. So we talked about EPR this year. Last year, it was kind of a higher level education around the benefits of collection of material and putting those materials back into use. Again, trying to educate our community and just taking it from that basic level. Now we're talking a little more specifics with EPR and so forth. I think that's one of the most significant avenues we have right now to educate our community. So we're planning on doing that again this year. It's going to be in the fall. We don't know when, but we are thinking about topics. If anybody has any input on that, of what we should focus on, it has been suggested that we focus on education, specifically like what works, what doesn't work, how do we connect with our communities and the various stakeholders in a meaningful way that we can really advance the knowledge level in Indiana. The second bullet on our program list is around education and advocacy for EPR. So I've talked about that a little bit. We want to create more concrete programmatic structure around education. Right now, it's kind of like the conference and what we do on social media and who we collaborate with, but we want to make that more structured so that we can accomplish more in that space. Moving on, outward reach and organizational networking. This has several things underneath it. I'll say to begin with that we have in the past spent a significant amount of time at community events, like we've gone to the Pacers, does an event for kind of science related things, or Celebrate Science with the American Chemical Society, where you go and you educate kids and families as they walk around and so forth. We struggle, just to be super transparent, with resources, with people to volunteer for those days. So we have gotten ourselves into a situation where we've said, yeah, we'll do that thing. And then we struggle to find the people to do that thing. So we are just kind of pulling back a small amount on that until we find more volunteers and resources to help us with that, this year at least. But beyond that, we have been working with the Purdue Sustainability Engineering School and their senior students. Every year they have a project, like a design project that they can work on with either organizations or nonprofits. Last year, we worked with the senior class on what we called a circularity hub. And it was this idea that we could create a space in Indianapolis that would be focused on education and maybe be a space for collaborating with legislators or community members or even teachers, and do some training type things. That class was tasked with, what does that look like? Is it physical? Is it permanent? Is it a building? Do we have a mobile type scenario that we can move around the state? What is the best way for us to advance that education with the Circularity Hub? So they did a phenomenal job. We had the outputs of their research, which essentially said that we should focus on an online presence coupled with some periodic community physical activities, but not to yet purchase the building type thing. So we're not getting too deep into that. So Ken, another board member who's here with me today, we've been working with our board to kind of define what that really should look like and when that should be launched. And then this year, we've been working with this senior class on battery collection. So Purdue is planning to do a couple of collections this spring in collaboration with CERBA, who is a heritage group organization that collects batteries and recycles them. And we will launch some education on Purdue's campus. Our hope is that we can define a structure that works and then roll it out to other universities. So we're working with those students. I think that's, for us, like I said, that's an easy way for us to access resources because we don't have the money to hire people and we're limited in terms of our board members. So accessing universities has been a success story for us thus far. And then the fourth item is around organic waste. This past year, we got a grant from Honda to educate the city of Greensburg on composting. That's where Honda has their plant. And so they asked us to conduct 3 events. One was to go into Honda and educate their employees. One was to address the high school in Greensburg and educate high school students. And then the third was to address the community. And so we did the first 2 were kind of in-person discussions and presentation type things. The community, we actually worked with other stakeholders in Greensburg along with Honda to build a community garden, compost garden. And so the community members, there was about 50, 75 people that participated at first. They got composting bins that they took home and put on their countertops. And then they would bring that compost to this garden, contribute it to the compost pile. They could also bring yard waste and things like that, which Ken built by hand. He built these bins. And then that is, turned until by volunteers, and then it's put into a garden when it's ready to be soiled. And they grow fruits and vegetables there, of which the community can come and access. So this is still, we've only been, 6 months at this, since it was built, but it has gotten a lot of attention and it's been a really cool project, that we were excited to be able to be part of. And so we still have part of that funding from Honda to spend. And so now we're in conversation with them about what else can we do to advance that education in Greensburg. But we would like to identify other topics or not topics, we would like identify other opportunities or other areas of the state that we can do similar things to educate around composting. So I think there is a big education gap there. Yeah.
I would just like to add that one of the things we did is pivot the way we thought about education on composting. Normally it's a classroom kind of format and people get vaccinated on composting and it doesn't really stick. And so what we thought was, let's do something that can be education in the field. So we built these composting bins, but it also has a lot of education materials associated with the bins. So they can actually do teaching about how the compost, the steps are set up, the green and the brown and all those good things. But, and what not to put in there. There was the notion of doing in the field sort of education as opposed to classroom education. But obviously that's a local thing. You have to do that on a local level. But it was, honestly, I think in the end, we hope it's going to be a more effective way to engage people because they can see how it works,
Exactly. Yeah. So those are the 4 main things on our list. This is just a slide from our board meeting. The strategic items might not really apply here, but we are going to be working on our website. There's a lot of room to improve there in terms of education, and then trying to grow our volunteer base so that we have more resources to pull from when we're invited to do things like the science fairs and that type of thing, Earth Day events. So that's kind of what's on our docket. We, like I said, we struggle with resources. We would like to build stronger connection to IDEM and work together on things. It's sometimes we are working on something and we hear there's maybe a project that's similar somewhere else, and it feels like it would be better if we could all work together and collaborate as one unit. So we are certainly open to that any and all times. We are very open to ideas. None of us pretend to be the know-all be-alls. Like, we are just trying to build a stronger circular economy and educate our state and our legislators on that point. So we are very happy to be here, happy to be invited, and hopefully we can continue talking about what's needed and how we can help. Anybody have any questions or feedback or comments?
Maybe just one other point, Pam, that you mentioned is, we're working with the Purdue Extension Office,
Mhm.
and they want, it's particularly the education part of Purdue Extension. And they have a small committee on circularity, but we're trying to establish them as one of our collaborators to bring the message out more broadly in the state. Because the historic one of our issues has been, how do you get out of the Indianapolis hub? Get out and influence the state. And so we're hoping that that connection with Indiana's Purdue Extension Office is going to help us make that. And they seem very interested in doing that. And there's a group this afternoon that's meeting at Purdue that has some similar initiatives.
Mhm. Good point.
So you created these compost bins that you then would take to, was it just the local high schools or the schools? So then they would learn.
We didn't take the compost bins, and so we just went into the schools and we gave like a presentation, and then we collected their lunch waste. So when the students were done with lunch, we would have them put it into a specific bin for compost, if it could be composted. And then we weighed that compost at the end and reported back with what that impact was to the high school and the Honda offices. But the bins that Ken created or made are on the property of the health department, is that right? The Greensburg Health Department, so they're permanent structures. I mean, you can pick them up, but they're meant to be there permanently. And we created signage, so this bin is for greens, this bin is for browns, the do's and the don'ts of composting. And so if you wanted to bring your compost from home, you would drive to the grounds of the health department and put it into the appropriate bin. And then volunteers work that, and then that's where the garden is and the food grows, and you can go and you can pick your apples or whatnot. So that was separate. That was a community effort that we created those bins for.
And if I may, would you state your name so that we can accurately reflect it in the transcript?
It's Ken Miller.
And Miller, thank you very much.
Are you working with the Indiana Organics Council? Because a lot of the things that you're doing as far as the training is similar to the projects that they do.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I don't believe we have a contact there right now.
Okay.
No. Yeah, it's okay.
Take any type of permitting to do this in Greensburg?
Did they have to get I mean, it's their land. Did they have to get a permit to put the bins down?
Well, we actually had a conversation with IDEM about doing this because it's composting in a public space and there's certain expectations there. We got some very nice help from you guys, by the way. I guess one of the important things of locating it at an active public facility was there is some oversight of what's going on. And, because that you could obviously easily make a mess. And, so anyway, it seems to be working out, you know, but, and again, I think the long-term benefit is that they have the opportunity, instead of educating in a classroom, come out and educate on that site. It's right in downtown Greensburg. And you could literally drive up to the compost bins as far away as Tom is from me. It's very set up to be very convenient. If they ever get overloaded with compost, that might be our next problem.
That'd be a good problem to have. Well, thanks for having us. If anybody has any questions.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate it. All right, our next, item on the agenda is the City of Indianapolis Ms. Mo McReynolds.
So we have Mo, she is online and I bring a team, I think, here in person as well. So they can introduce themselves, but just a quick introduction that as we are all well aware, the city of Indianapolis is getting universal curbside recycling. And so there are opportunities, although they did not get grant funds from us, there are opportunities to ask for additional dollars from our funds through augmentations. So they asked for a chance to present to the board, their topic and some additional funding that they would like to receive. And I'll let Mo or,
Yeah, hi, everyone. Daniel Stevenson. I am the Deputy Director of Policy and Planning for the City of Indianapolis, Department of Public Works. And then obviously we have Mo here with us online. I'm going to talk a little bit about what has kind of led us to this process, where we are going to be bringing the universal curbside recycling, and then Mo's gonna take over from there. Right, Mo? Still the plan? Thumbs up? Okay. So this really started about 5 years ago in the city of Indianapolis. We underwent a very large waste minimization study effort. Through that process, which was guided towards figuring out how to bring universal curbside recycling to Indianapolis and how we could be diverting more waste out of landfills or other types of disposal methods. What we found is that by moving in that direction, based off of the approximately 270,000 single-family households that are served by DPW, that we would be, if we went with like the lower end of the average for other large cities, similar to the city of Indianapolis in size and scale of 20 pounds, that we would get to a diversion rate from our current 7% up to 12%. If it was on the higher end of the average for those large cities, which is around 30 pounds, that we would get to approximately 18% of a diversion rate. To bring universal curbside recycling to Indianapolis, it's projected to cost approximately $10.5 to $18 million per year, or approximately $3.17 to $5.48 per household per month. So when we were looking at how are we going to get there with the budget constraints, things of that nature, we knew we had an opportunity with our solid waste contracts that were going to be up for procurement for the first time. And gosh, I want to say it was about almost 40 years since those contracts have been renegotiated to hopefully find good partners, get good rates, and get us some cost savings to cover that cost gap. We were really trying to not raise the cost per household for our solid waste user fee, which has also not been changed in over 40 years. So we were hopeful for that. So we went through a very long procurement process where sustainability was a very large focus in the scoring criteria for the RFP. Where we landed is for our disposal contracts. We are still working with Reworld Indiana, formerly Covanta. I'm sure you guys are all very familiar. And the majority of our solid waste goes to Reworld Indianapolis, where it is incinerated. This then in turn powers the downtown steam loop. The remaining solid waste that cannot be burned or during scheduled outages at Reworld for maintenance, etc., will then be diverted to Southside landfill. All leaves that are collected during our annual 4-week leaf collection season will be taken to Southside landfill for composting. The largest change, though, that we're going to be seeing in operating practices is on the collections and processing of recyclable materials side. We are now going to be working with WM and utilizing them as our recyclables processing vendor. And then on the collection side, we are partnering with LRS. They're going to be our comprehensive partner for hauling. And this is where we get to the good stuff that Mo is going to start talking about. They, I think, really wanted to get into this market. And through that, we were able to negotiate some really excellent rates with them for the collections. So not only are they currently doing the subscription curbside recycling and solid waste trash hauling, but by the end of that contract period with LRS, we will actually be at more than $10 million in savings per year compared to what we were paying with our former vendors, if you look at the same time frame. So what that has done is it has allowed us to formally make the announcement that while we will be still subscription curbside recycling for 26 and 27, we will be rolling out universal curbside in 2028. Obviously, as we are working through preparing for that, one of the big things that we know we need to start focusing on is education and outreach. If we want this to be successful, if we want to see those diversion rates to be on the higher end and to be successful, we are going to need to focus on education and outreach. And from here, I will turn it over to Mo to talk a little bit further about what our ask was. I'm going to go stand back there if you guys have any questions.
Thanks, Daniel. Can everyone hear me all right?
We can.
Thank you. So, first of all, Deanna, I can't wait to talk to you about your next adventure. Congratulations on the service you've had for the state and especially for this group. I will be very sad to not be able to text you and talk about everything that I need to know about IDEM all the time, but I'm sure there'll be many other ways we can work together.
Thanks, Mo.
We put forth exactly to this group in the description Deanna gave around what can we do in education and outreach for exactly to where Daniel has queued us up to. And we didn't want to change from what we presented to you from Recycling Market Development Grant, because this is exactly the version that you're used to seeing. So we kept it in the same format. Glad to put it in a different format if you'd like us to do that in the future. However, we kept it pretty similar. We didn't change the amount that we would potentially ask for. Again, we can scale any parts of this should that be of interest in the future. What I really want to get to is exactly where Daniel left us of how do we now get to the next couple years. We will be going from 279,000 households with about 40,000 subscribing right now to every single one of those 279, give or take a couple thousand, to universal curbside subscription. And exactly as Daniel said, how do we do that successfully? How do we communicate and engage those residents on exactly how they can use those bins, exactly how, what can go there, what can't go there? And so that's why we presented to you in the Recycling Market Development Grant Program, the need for a one-time spend, a one-time ask to get us through that education and outreach phase to properly and effectively execute this transition. We're not asking for ongoing support. This is Indianapolis being a significant factor in the state, a huge economic driver, specifically around IDEM's goals. There's not going to be any city in Indianapolis's scale that can make as much of an impact to IDEM's recycling percentage goals and diversion goals than Indianapolis can be. So I'm going to take us through the... Nope, I didn't mean to stop sharing. I'm working on one monitor here. I'm sure you can appreciate that that's a little bit limiting. The particular project rationale is to, I also want to identify that where we were required to have the match in the Recycling Market Development Program, we still have the Recycling Partnership, which I'm sure you're all very familiar with. The Recycling Partnership is still very much an engaged partner with us, not necessarily not just for recycling market development program to be our match, but because they have seen us as a major target across the United States for the past 5 to 10 years. And we've been constantly engaged with them. They are still very much at the table, bringing hundreds of thousands of dollars into this work that, again, we hope to leverage with the help of IDEM and the Recycling Market Development Board. So there are a number of strategies that trying to get down to our timeline here. There we go. So there are a number of strategies that the Recycling Partnership would like to help implement, and that being a general education and outreach, understanding that we literally just need to be running media. There are a number of market tested messages that will be available, that the Recycling Partnership has run throughout the nation on many different transitions like this, that we would like to start message testing in Indianapolis. We would like to start moving some routes into a fuller subscription in the interim period between that 26 to 28 timeline. And then we would like to create a plan for getting ourselves through 26, I mean, you know, what we have here left of 26, 27 as a pivotal year, and then how we really plan through 28 to execute this full community engagement and education opportunity. So here's a little bit more of our timeline. As you can see there, we had included recycling market development, application deliberation, and award notification. The transition itself begins in 2026 in terms of new contracts coming online with the city, and then into 27, 28, developing these programs, implementing some of these transitionary education program strategies, and then in 28, starting that true transition where bins are being dropped off at those 270,000 or so households. I don't want, you all have seen this before. I don't want to spend too much time explaining to you something you've already seen. Again, just running through the application we've already presented to you. I hope you have quite a lot of questions. And so I will pause there so that we can talk about some of your concerns and questions.
So I think you have a great plan laid out with the Recycling Partnership as far as your education, and, it looks like you have a plan for, introducing carts. But what my brain got stuck on in the beginning of the presentation was that you don't want to raise prices for residents. So if I understand why you don't want to, nobody wants to pay more for their trash, right? So I come from a county where we have a city that has a lot of money, okay? And their residents don't pay for trash or recycling. They have a free program, but is that sustainable? No, it's not. So, what is your plan? Your plan is what are residents going to pay? Are they ever going to see an increase?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And I hope Daniel can support me in answering this. In our current contracts with LRS being our exclusive hauler, it's not that we don't want to raise rates. It's that the rates that LRS gave us are competitive, that we don't need to. It's that they were so motivated to come into this market that they gave us incredibly competitive pricing. Daniel, what would you add to that?
Yeah, no, exactly what Mo said. It really is a situation where we got the negotiated rates from our new vendor hauler that we do not have to raise the rates.
Okay, well, I got a question. What do you currently pay for trash and recycle services?
I believe it's $32 a year.
It's an
So-
embarrassingly low amount that it's incorporated into property taxes. And while that may be an opportunity to increase those rates in the future, that is not a position with current, again, given the contracts that we were able to negotiate, that's not a position that we're currently taking.
Oh, I
However,
understood
we
that when-
acknowledge that they are incredibly low.
Oh, I understood that when you guys launched that study a number of years ago, that $32 is really focused on the disposal side. And that much of the collection cost comes out of the general budget, and it's more like an $180 a household sort of framework. So that $32 really only represents a kind of a minor portion of what, you know, college is really paying. And it's probably not enough even at that, you know, it's a tough problem.
But it is.
That's correct.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
one of
that's-
the wrinkles in Marion County, Indianapolis compared to other counties is that, you know, before the Daniels and I existed, there was not a solid waste district established in Marion County. So there's a little bit of a difference between what a solid waste district has been able to increase and justify the increase in costs versus the way that that has fallen on previous leadership, previous elected officials, and the relationship with union service that helps us process our existing waste, which is such an important part of our ecosystem.
There's many cities that provide trash and recycling services to their communities, and they absorb the cost under general fund. And so sometimes they don't see anything that the residents pay, or they pay very little. Because that's absorbed into the general fund, and that's probably what happens here. I have a question. I saw your timeline and how you try to work everything into the education, but I didn't see any numbers. I know you want you're asking us for $100,000, and where is that 100,000? I mean, I see the general picture, the big picture, but how much is gonna be spent on billboards? How much is gonna be spent on brochures? That's the specifics of it. Do you have those numbers?
That's a great question. Truly, so much of this is scalable. We could scale down and do whatever we could do based on the staff that you see in front of you, which would not be particularly effective, or we could scale to $2 million in education and outreach. There are the estimates from Recycling Partnership in cities our size speak to about $500,000, or the $500,000 that we had requested from the Recycling Market Development Program through that partnership, and the approximately $5,000 that the Recycling Partnership was willing to match that with, to be about $1 million overall in that transition, a transition like ours, and the amount of funding needed to do that particular type of education outreach. Now, we could break down exactly how much from that $1 million, like if that's something you're interested in seeing, we can do that. We were hoping to leave it very loose so that we could adjust in that 2 years what was needed, because so much of this is unventured territory for us.
I just want some justification of where those numbers came from, and not just a guess.
Sure, and that a little bit of that is in the letter from the Recycling Partnership and their willingness to match and find the match funding.
We also have received quotes from several different marketing firms. We've spoken with Shop and Empower Results, I think is the name of the other. I'm not sure if those ended up making it.
We had the vote from the board, the board saw that in the last meeting.
Yeah, so that gave a little bit more of a breakdown, but again, like Mo said, we were trying to keep that somewhat big in case we get like partial amount of funding. So we asked both of those firms to make it in a very scalable format where we could, if we get the max, here's what we are, and then here's how we could filter it down if we got a lesser amount.
Well, did I understand correctly? You say that the contract that you negotiated with LRS and WM saved you $10 million over the previous.
So yes, by the end of that contract, we will see approximately $10 million a year in savings based off of, if you're comparing our former contracts with Republic and Waste Management as our collections hauler versus the new LRS contract. So for example, in this first year with LRS, it's approximately $6 per household for that collections. We were already paying more than that with Republic and WM. With the inflationary like setup of those contracts, by the end, we were at $10 million per year, which gets us pretty close to what that waste minimization study said on the lower end of the cost scale that it would take to bring universal curbside to Indianapolis. So in that contract, over the first half of that 10-year period, we will have already saved enough money to cover like the first half of the universal curbside recycling contract. And then the savings just go up from there. So that's why we felt like we would be able to bring in this program, make that formal announcement with no change in our user rate, et cetera. That's roughly how it's being modeled.
First comment I have is, don't hold back on changing your user. I mean, everything's going up. So get on board, because recycling is not free, bottom line. And you have a whole community here that expects recycling for free. Which is unfortunate, because they have to be vested in the program for it to be successful. I'm shocked that your contracts did not include educational dollars. Or if they did, could you please share with me how much educational dollars are included in your contracts?
Yes, so both WM and LRS are both going to have full-time education and outreach people to work with the city of Indianapolis to do some of that work, but that's like adding 2 people to this group of 5 people that you see before you. And so there's not necessarily like a dollar amount set to that, other than them bringing in full-time staff people specifically to do education and outreach for us.
And that doesn't include, that doesn't include media buy. That doesn't include some of the other, projects that we've put in front of you today. That includes them thinking about working in the central Indiana region. And I would say, to put even a finer point on it, the fact that Indianapolis has negotiated these contracts that has motivated WM to put a second very large scale MRF in central Indiana is already having quite an effect. They will be operational in this $60 million investment of a MRF in central Indiana very shortly. So outside of the contract that the city holds with these entities, they are already having an impact on central Indiana and the amount of diversion that's occurring, again, which is the city's largest economic driver. So aside from the way we transition our 279,000 households, these contracts have already had an incredible impact.
Again, I congratulate you on the contract negotiation, but I find it a little short-sighted not to have a strong educational commitment in those contracts. It really just, in our experience, it doesn't work without that commitment.
An additional item that I would also note too is that LRS through that contract is also providing us with Recycle Coach, which is an application-based education tool that every resident will have access to. We will be able to send direct messaging and communication to the residents with like reminders on recycling, with educational tips. It will walk them through everything, like you can scan an item and be like, can I recycle this or not in Indianapolis? And it will give you all of that information. So that is also a large education based resource that was included in those contracts.
Does that Recycle Coach app launch with the start of the universal, or for those who already have recycling are going to be able to utilize those now?
We are actually very close to launching that education piece. So they're starting that right out the gate. We're just, the only holdup on why it hasn't rolled out yet is we are still working through a couple of security things with our IFA, our internal IT team, at the city of Indianapolis. Everything is looking good on that end, so we should be launching very soon with Recycle Coach.
Yeah, you'll see that this quarter.
Fair question. So how much are you gonna spend, because I know you don't want to raise your rates. So how much are you gonna spend on your promotions every year after this first
It's a great question.
time thing we have to do? Will you be coming in next year? Because, I mean, in Fort Wayne, I know we spend, and we don't even spend enough, but we spend over $100,000 a year just on promotions to get information out to the residents to keep your program going strong. You're gonna be dealing with contamination every year. If you don't want to raise your rate now to do this, are you gonna be coming back year after year so Indy doesn't have to raise their rates? I mean, I just look at it from northern Indiana. We're not getting this money, so will I need to start coming and asking this board, hey, I don't want to raise my rates. Can you give me money?
Sure.
I think that another thing to note there, right, is that we're constantly working with the city county council. At the end of the day, like Mo or myself are not the body that could raise that rate. So there has been discussion about would that rate increase in the future? What does that look like? It's just at the end of it, like I said, Mo and I aren't the people that can make that decision. So this is something that we continue to work on with city county council to perhaps see that happen in the future, but.
Well, I think our point in bringing that up to you, number one, we want to see you succeed. Please make no mistake about that.
Yeah,
We want you to succeed. But you guys are the vehicle to plan for that. And that's what we're trying to raise to you, that, you know, if you're not gonna raise your rates, it's common sense, like, you're gonna have to find that money somewhere to provide that education. So that's why we're encouraging you to make that plan. We understand you're not the people to do it, but you need to be thinking about that as you're doing all this planning.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We hear you loud and clear. There's, as Daniel said, we are aware of the embarrassingly low rate that Indianapolis currently pays in those, in tipping fees, in solid waste fees, like all of that is very much on the table. Given our existing contract, that is not the near term lever that we are pulling. And I want, without coming out and being extremely frank with you, as Daniel said, all possibilities are on the table. Our office, the Department of Daniel's area in policy and planning are all extremely aware of these things. We are not short-sighted in the need to continue this work after 2028. Your point there from Fort Wayne, you know, my family's in Fort Wayne. I totally understand. We hear you loud and clear. In this first push of transitioning these 279,000 households, we come to this board for that support to get it online, because this is the largest city in the state that can make the single most impact in terms of municipal solid waste.
Mo, you had, I think, mentioned to me that you were also looking for additional matches and funding besides the recycling partnership.
That's right.
Can you talk?
And the recycling partnership is also continuing to look for matches through themselves. So essentially fundraising on our behalf. In the transitionary period, in that 26, 27 to into 28, we are not, we have not inquired as to the manufacturers in central Indiana who want our recycled material, who want those commodities in order to do their necessary processes. As I'm sure you know, potentially you've seen the meeting that we held in 2022, where we invited manufacturers from central Indiana, in central Indiana to speak to the city county council around the need for that diverted material to stay in the region because they are currently bringing things in from out of state. So we have had initial conversations with those organizations to support this transition. We have not made those asks yet, but it is very much queued up.
No, this is Ken. I just wanted to remind you of the discussions we've had in the past about Columbus in Ohio. And they have made a very substantial commitment to sustained education around waste. And they're currently at a 55+ diversion rate, and largely due to their, in part due to their education. But I just, as a best practice, there might be some things that you can pick up from them that would easily translate and use. So anyway, if you need any help making reestablishing that contact, or if you haven't already, I'd be glad to help you.
And I don't know why you'd ever think I'd forget that. That's constantly on my mind. There'd be never a reason for me to forget that.
You've also spent, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, please, I'm gonna shake the room here. Go ahead.
The last 2 years, because I've heard a lot about central Indiana, and again, you know, I'm from the north. The last 2 years, the state's given money to central Indiana to improve recycling through business grants. Weren't there separate?
Yeah.
So I still keep everything, there's a lot of focus on central Indiana, grants made specifically for central Indiana. And now this asks for education in Indy. When are we gonna do any more focus on other parts of the state?
Is that a question you want me to answer? Because I can tell you, we appeared to this board for those opportunities and were not able to say that we had those contracts in hand. We now have those contracts in hand because of when those contracts expired. And so we have the opportunity to say, in Indianapolis, we have the contracts that will implement universal recycling at the curb. The timing was just a little off.
Would Indy support more appropriations from the state to other parts of specific to other parts of the state?
That's a little above my pay grade. You'd have to talk to the mayor's office and Department of Public Works about that.
2 million for.
I can't be talking over each other.
Okay. Good.
Mo, I'm gonna get into the subject here. I don't want you or Daniel to take offense to anything I'm gonna say. It's just I'm inquiring. When your waste goes to the real world, it's incinerated. The ash goes to the south side. Is there any monies that go to the recycling promotional assistance fund from that, or is that exempt?
So
Deanna's shaking her head.
Yeah, I can address that a little bit. And I talked to Tom because Tom gets the reporting numbers.
Okay,
That was, in the past, Marion County was exempt, but that is since been repealed. So we do get the recycling and promotion assistance fund. So the fund that we do grant dollars with does get a portion of our funds from Marion County. Tom, because we talked a little bit, Bruce, did some rough calculations, very estimates based, but based on the amount of waste disposal coming from Marion County, it would look like the RMDP gets about 400,000 annually from Marion County.
Very good.
waste.
very good.
Yeah.
Makes me feel a lot better.
That's just a small.
It's a, considering the size of the community, yeah. Not a
Yeah,
lot of money, but I mean, I guess my goal is somehow when you have a company like WM and going into a market, they have their own educational component already designed and drafted that they should be able to provide you with, through your partnership. I mean, they've done it all across the United States. And I don't think it's going to be that much different here. Every community has a different list of acceptable items. And I don't know what they're building their MRF for here. I can't speak to that, only they can. LRS is a collection company. They should have what style of cart they're going to use, how they're gonna pick it up, all that communicated to them, to their customers. That's just all part of a standard service contract. And I'm just quite surprised that there's an additional hundreds of thousands of dollars needed to educate beyond that. Other than the fact that you're not raising money, raising the price to the consumer.
Yeah, so for that media buy, exactly to the question I heard earlier of the message is one thing, and then the billboards and the social media buys and the radio ads and things like that's not included. And so the messaging is one thing, but the implementation of it is another.
But that's why it's not included. And my argument is that's why you raise the rates. Because you don't have the money to pay for it.
I'm sorry, Bo, that they took you and threw you into this without the benefit of some of the experience in this room or, out there. So, those things probably would have been taken care of ahead of time that we mentioned, but,
Explain how this augmentation works, Deanna. This request.
I wish our CFO was still here.
Yeah, our CFO would be the best one to answer that.
Yeah, and we've done this exercise going through Title 13 and Title 4, where the board's authorization sits as Title 4. And, it's not real clear to me. I think I was pulling it up. I can get my iPad and unlocking it here. Basically, it says that, so. It's the right place, I think so. Yeah, here it is. So this is Indiana Code 4-23-5.5-6. And this is A4. Annually prepare an administrative budget for review by the budget agency and the budget committee. There really is no language that I have seen in the last, few months as we've been working on the agency bill, and that really sort of has language around augmentation. So, but I guess you could interpret that fairly loosely. It doesn't say on any sort of cycle, so. But, currently, we do not have in our budget money for, to do additional grants for this fiscal year. As it stands, it's the sort of what we have standardly, like Brianni was saying earlier, essentially our appropriation that we get from our dedicated funds is based on what the anticipated and typical revenue tends to be. So that generally is in the range of $2 to $2.5 million that we get annually from the Recycling Promotion Assistance Fund and the Solid Waste Management Fund.
And we've actually allocated that monies already.
Correct.
That have been made available to us.
So none of this is word because this is my understanding. We would need confirmation from our CFO, but the first time I heard about the board and the ability to augment was actually in conversation around the city of Indianapolis back when they started working on their Thrive sustainability plan and started talking about universal curbside. And I think that was probably 7, 8 years ago. I think it was probably when I started around this position. And the recycling partnership in the city of Indianapolis was having a lot of meetings, and they involved IDEM in those meetings. And they asked at that time if augmentation would be available to be able to help launch curbside recycling. And at that time, the answer was yes. So different administrations I will say that. That was 2 or 3 administrations ago for item. So that's where that idea came from. If you look at our item budget bill, or the approved budget for item that was approved in the last legislative session, it provides that 2.2 million for 2 million for grants, additional bit for administration. And then it says augmentation allowed. So it does say augmentation allowed in the approved budget for item and for the recycling promotion assistance fund. That's what we know, I guess.
Did they apply for a grant to the recycle promotion and assistance fund?
Yes.
Did they receive money from them?
Indianapolis?
Yes.
No, they did not get funding.
So are we going to open up the $15 million pot and out of that augment enough money to support this program? Is that what you're saying, Deanna?
That's the question, I think, at the table, yeah.
And I think to further answer your question, Debbie, I think when we reviewed leaving our team, recycling team at IDEM, and then I think you all reviewed it as well, like it didn't score high enough, and I think a lot of the concern was around sort of lack of details, like you mentioned earlier, Debbie. It was sort of like, it's a big ask for $500,000, but we're not exactly sure how those funds are gonna be spent when we have, 20 some other proposals that have quotes and a lot more details on exactly what is gonna be spent and how it's gonna be spent.
Yeah, we absolutely hear that particular concern, which is why we then subsequently supplied multiple quotes with those details.
Okay, and Mo, if I may, does Deanna have the amount that you're requesting now? Or do you have that number?
Well, we left it still at $500,000, and we're, as we've said today, and as Daniel said, willing to scale. The amount of funding we receive will be completely directly commensurate with how successful we can be in reaching our community and sharing this message about the transition to how to use their bins.
Are there any other organizations that you're approaching for support for this same activity?
Not an organization like yours. As we said, we're working with, and we have a commitment from the Recycling Partnership. They are continuing to fundraise on our behalf. And then we will seek additional support from our commodity users at smaller portions because they stand to benefit, only indirectly.
And I get, Bruce, if I may, there are 2 pieces of legislation currently in the State House that make proposals to modify the structure of this board, and one proposes to eliminate it. And I don't know where those are at. Session will end of February, early March. So I don't know what, if any of those pieces of legislation were to pass, what those implications would mean. So I just felt like I should mention that.
Well, I appreciate that, Carl, because that's exactly where my head's at. I'm aware of the potential changes. And how can we do anything, whether it's a yay or a nay, not knowing where we may be in 3 months. So, I think we need to have exactly, if Deanna has exactly what you're requesting, Mo, that's great. But we're going to have to get some more guidance from either the CFO, legal, or just the department itself as what happens after the House bills are reviewed and possible changes are implemented as to what we have available to work with. Because right now, we've got empty pockets. As
Yeah,
I
we
see
hear
it.
you. And as you said, the city of Indianapolis, Marion County contributes into your funds. And, you know, we come to this board for exactly that reasons and in order to be able to, as any community would, make themselves eligible to reuse those funds that we've supplied. We are very willing to scale back or scale up to whatever, you know, is available here. We have not changed a dime or a word from the same application we put forth to the Recycling Market Development Grant.
Any other questions, board members? Well, all I can say at this point in time is stay tuned. Because I really don't know that we can give you any type of commitment or answer until we see what potential restructuring or elimination of this board is. Because I don't know what we're allowed to do legally as far as augmentation. And we have no monies that have been approved at this time.
I think we need to be very careful, for setting the precedents
I
in the
agree.
future too, so I think it needs to be done exactly right.
I think that's my concern as well. It's, you know, I absolutely think that this is a critical program and I understand that it is a big potential of the overall state of Indiana's, you know, improvement in recycling rates, having this be a successful program. The fact that it's coming to us sort of off cycle with an augmentation is the part that I'm having the most issue with, because if we do that, I mean, what's to stop every other applicant from doing that every single year? Which kind of destroys the process.
Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know, we've tried to facilitate and use the opportunities and before us and, you know, didn't find any success in those previous avenues.
yeah, and I guess I would just add, you know, I think the clarity of the ask would be helpful. If, you know, $500,000, when we think about our regular cycle, that's a quarter of our funding. So that's a big ask to do off cycle.
Is there a way to ask proportionally what they're asking for Indy, we're gonna give to them, give to every community in Indiana that has a curbside program, proportionally give them money this year too.
Would augmentation have to be based off an existing grant recipient, or how does that work?
So budget augmentation is I probably can't speak intelligently enough about it, to be honest, because I'm not the CFO. You know, so like the Central Indiana waste diversion, that's a good example. You know, that was something that we did. We had to go and augment the Recycling Promotion Assistance Fund from the legal fund, where all of those dedicated funds sit, getting sort of down into the rabbit hole of state budget finances a little bit. But we get a portion of that allocated to us annually through the budget process. And so we only were getting the 2.5 million. So our budget did not appropriate that money, but the legislation authorized an augmentation to the fund, if that makes sense. So then we were able to ask for that augmentation once you all awarded funds. So like we didn't go and get the full $4 million from the legal fund and move it into our dedicated fund that we operate out of with the grant program and pay Deanna's salary and Tom's salary and other staff salaries out of that on our team. So we didn't ask for the augmentation until we knew exactly how much was being awarded. And then we did that again with the second round. So we waited until the commitment of dollars was awarded by the board before we went to the state budget agency and said, okay, the board awarded this amount of money. So now we need the augmentation and it's authorized under this legislation that was passed.
So the legislation came first, the board did a round, had the monies sort of dedicated, and then the augmentation occurred.
Yeah.
And so. And Tom can maybe fill in a little bit of the history of the board, since Tom's been a good part of it from its, beginning, but it used to be, and this is I think mostly prior to when the board was moved over to IDEM, but that it was run very differently. They would hear proposals every meeting. They would dedicate however much funds that they did, and then it would be augmented for that amount. So there wasn't, the board's funds weren't tied to IDEM's crew budget at that time, and so augmentations were done a little bit easier, so to speak, in those prior administrations and the prior way that we were able to run budgets. Budgets are run very differently now. So I think that speaks to you, like saying though, like the board would determine first that they want to augment by so much, and then it's asked through SBA to.
Yeah, and I think I would have to go back and talk to our general counsel about that and see and our CFO and see if there was a process according to statute, because I will say that, the current administration is very much focused on it. It does not give us the authority to do something in statute. We're not doing it. So it's past administrations have maybe been a little stretching. We're not stretching.
Where I'm at, Carl, is exactly along those lines. We don't have any monies approved currently to offer whether we wanted to or not.
Correct.
This ask is coming in a little bit before what could be a blow up of the entire program. And we don't have any legal authority to commit to the city of Indianapolis any type of approval. So, I mean, it's impossible, and then don't be upset with us. We want to see the program succeed, but we have nothing to give.
Yeah. I find myself only slightly disappointed to hear this because of all of the, as you said, $400,000 that Indianapolis, Marion County commits and contributes to this every year. We've seen $50,000 in the last 10 years from this group. So that's, especially being that we are 1/20th of the state's population, we're contributing more than our fair share.
I contribute $400,000.
I
mean, the same could be said for a lot of other parts of the state.
100,000 is a significant amount of money for the amount of waste generated within Marion County. It's not a significant amount of money, just because of the contract with Rural World. But we do appreciate your contribution. I think we did some work with Indianapolis Motor Speedway, recent years.
We fund a lot of projects still in Marion County for
So-
businesses.
So we do, we do try to be as fair as possible. But this is just an unusual request. And Mo, and please give us the time we need, because we're not going to commit to you for something we are uncertain whether we even have the power to do so.
Yeah, I understand. And as I said, we've tried to use the pathways in front of us and have applied at every single opportunity and just not found success.
I would lean on your partners as well. I mean, as well as.
Well, and we see this board certainly as a partner and certainly want to continue seeing you as a partner.
We are a partner with you, and we've shown that whether it's a small grant or not. But when I'm saying partners, I'm meaning your project team that you put together with the WMs and the LRSs of the world. And they both know that a good recycling program requires an educational component. And that should have been in their proposal. Anyone else have anything to comment? Well, Mo, I thank you, Daniel, I thank you. Again, all we can do is wait for some clarity coming back from, IDEM as to what we can actually accomplish. It's not going to happen before the next board meeting, I would imagine. But, we'll still put in the request for the guidance.
One more question that we won't be able to answer. Is there, and I'm gonna show my naivety about the process, but is there, with this augmentation, an opportunity to do something like say, hey, we recognize that 2026 is a transition point for certainly the city of Indianapolis. Many other municipalities may also be trying to, reinvigorate their programs and do a special cycle where we allow new applications for an education focused program, or is that, maybe I'm way out in left field, but I think, to Matt's point, that would make it seem a little more of a fair footing that anybody could apply. And if we're doing something that's a special off-cycle thing, and we're saying we're really focusing this just on increasing education to improve the rates for every, recipient, then it wouldn't matter. It's not like a special favor to one applicant. It would be something where anybody could say, hey, here's what we're trying to do, and here's the funding that we need. And if we could get that extra money, I don't know if that's all possible or not.
We already have a grant for education. Right?
Well, yeah, the community recycling grants does provide a lot of education funding. So we do have that way to fund things as well. It's an interesting idea. We'd still have to ask for the augmentation and it just be in a different way. Cause yeah, I mean, and of course, within the 2 million that we get budgeted every year, you could definitely set aside a portion of that for education projects. Like you guys can determine how you want to see the funds awarded in grants. You can set priority materials, you can set education as a priority funding type. We could set, different amounts for different project types. We can look at restructuring our grants how we want, but I don't think that's what you're asking. You're asking for beyond that 2 million.
Well, and I'm tying it back to the conversation about we've got the, 16 million or something sitting in reserves. And I think that was what prompted prior action to say, hey, let's spend some of this and get it out there doing good in the neighborhood, but that was all enacted through legislation. So that's where I'm not really clear if we could say, hey, let's do a one-time special thing, use some of these funds that are just sitting there and spread the love.
And just to take you into our thought process a little bit more, if we'd come to you with a CART grant, for example, that would have felt even less, that we were putting our money where our mouth was in terms of supporting our own programs. And we are fully funding our own operations. This next piece of doing the proper education felt like this is where we can partner with IDEM Recycling Board for a proper transition. Again, fully trying to help co-execute and help achieve the state's goals, because as you said, we can't win without each other.
Debbie, you had mentioned there's a recycle education grant.
The community
Recycling grant program.
Could they go to that
So the
and ask
community,
for this one-time ask?
the community recycling grants has a lot less funding, so they're only give out 500,000 annually. And I think the maximum you can ask for in funding is 100,000.
Yeah, that's correct.
But could they go with a special ask, like they're wanting to come here?
We considered that. the way we
No.
read the statute was that we could not apply for both at the same time or hold two grants at the same time. So we certainly didn't want to leave money on the table asking for a smaller amount.
Yeah, so the CRGP program is implemented by the agency, and so that grant round is already closed, and we've made awards and are working on grant agreements for that program already, so that won't open for another cycle until much later this year.
This is just like having another Central Indiana Waste Diversion Program grant. That kind of was a special ask. We were directed to accommodate, it's $4 million that we were given to play with. So until somebody says you have $500,000, $200,000.
I was just gonna say, it might have been nice to have some of our legislative members that are part of the board in this conversation when we're starting to talk about the augmentation and.
Sorry
support
for
it.
our
So
ignorance.
maybe that's something they could, look into even, so.
I mean, again, if you want to look at Indiana code, the under additional powers, again, this is Indiana code 4-23-5.5-9. Board may, number 2 is establish application forms and procedures for programs consistent with this chapter. And you guys have done that through the program that's already in place where we awarded those funds last fall. So
And there's opportunities around the Central Indiana Waste Diversion project itself, like, although it only provided in the statute for the 2 years that we did it, they're still keeping it in the statute. So if there's,
It's in statute, but no funds have been.
yeah,
you
exactly.
guys have awarded all the funding authorized by those pieces of legislation.
Well, your recycling program, that changes beginning January 1st of 28, correct?
The contracts have already begun this year. The LRS and WM, those contracts are in existence. We gave ourselves a little bit of a window because we understand that this transition is so vital that we wanted to do it thoughtfully between 26, 27, and then those carts dropping Q1 2028.
So we have the status quo that people are already educated on currently. And we are making a change first quarter of 28, correct?
Sure, you can put it that way. We hope to build out many of those programs to lead ourselves to 20, it's almost impossible to have the light switch off in December 2027 and then turn it on January 2028. So we certainly need to build before there.
There's a ramp up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But it's not a 12-month ramp up. And we've got a little bit of time to educate, is my point. And we just need to get some answers before anyone here is going to go out on a limb and make a commitment that we can do something without legal approval.
Yeah, I hear you 100%. We certainly didn't want to wait, having applied this most recent recycling market development program, certainly didn't want to wait a year and a half before you saw this again. So we certainly wanted to be fresh in your brains and be able to have this more relevant conversation.
All right. Any other comments, questions? Mo and Daniel, I thank you very much for your input.
I appreciate your guys' questions and comments too. It gives us stuff to continue to think through and work on as well. So thank you.
And I guess the only other thing I'll add, Bruce, if I may, is that probably the next round for our MDP would be right around the first week of May. That's sort of typically our cycle for opening the RFP up annually. So
Are we confident we're going to be at the same levels moving forward as a budget approval
Yes, the biennium budget did contemplate sort of the similar appropriation from this past or current fiscal year to next fiscal year. So I don't think there was any change there, so.
Right. Thank you. Appreciate your
Thank
time.
you.
Al.
And I appreciate you letting me zoom in. I'm out of town this week, taking care of some family members.
Alrighty.
Thanks.
Okay. The next item on the agenda does happen to be, Carl, the grant round for the coming year, I guess, or for
That's right.
next grant cycle.
We need to start thinking about this next grant cycle, right? So, this is what we've used in the past years. I just put it up on the projector there, for discussion on if we want to see changes on what the next grant round looks like. Usually we talk just broadly over the timeline, the funding numbers, minimum and maximums, eligibility. We want to have any priority materials and any changes you'd like to see in the guidelines that we provide. So I thought we could kind of quickly work through those topics. I provided the key dates. This is in line with what we've done in all previous years, where you guys would approve the plan and or plan guidelines and RFP for the grant proposals on the next board meeting in April 23rd. Then we would post and announce that next round, May 13th, with a deadline 6 weeks later for submission of proposals on June 24th. With the board again awarding them at the October board meeting at October 22nd. So any thoughts, discussion around the timeline?
I think it's been working fine. It's my comment.
Okay. I figured, but always a chance for to work things out.
As long as Kelly's not gonna be on vacation, so.
I was just looking at that.
Uh-oh.
I am very likely to be in New York that entire week.
Of October 22nd.
It's my annual conference. Not anything fun.
What about the following week?
29th is open for me.
You guys wanna go ahead and
Or the 15th. Either one.
determine to move that board meeting date already, or you wanna wait?
Well, I think we need to poll everyone that's here. How these dates match up with everyone's schedule. I'm pretty readily available,
Yeah, I'm
because
available.
Lord willing and creek don't rise.
I'm good for moving. But yeah, we wait a little bit, we get a little closer.
Yeah,
And
that can be determined at the next board meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Carl and Pam will make note of it. Okay, so this is where I think that you guys might have more discussion. I know Debbie hinted at this at the last meeting. So typically, our minimum and maximum for a particular applicant is a 50,000 to 500,000. And I will just open it up to you guys for discussion.
I think we should lower the upper limit. We can fund more projects. Those projects that get the 500,000. I know that in most cases, those projects will continue if they only got 350. They're gonna take what we give them and they're gonna be very happy with that. And then we can find more of these other projects that are good projects, they just didn't make float to the top, that maybe we could get some more of the smaller grants with some help on funding.
Because how often do we actually give someone 500,000? Do we do that very often?
You have been in the last 3 years.
Yeah, about one or two.
I'd say prior to 3 years ago, it almost never happened.
But we changed the limit.
Yeah, and we did change the limit.
What were the
So-
limits before?
The limit used to be 250,000. And then I think we still hesitated to give the 500,000 for a couple of years after we changed it to 500,000. And then there was
We had the big
hesitation.
when the aluminum plant went up in northeastern Indiana. I think that's the first time we awarded 500,000.
It always makes me feel a little bit hesitant though, when someone is asking for 500,000, because if I have other ones on my list, like Debbie's saying, that are looking for funding.
But we still, excuse me, we still have the opportunity to have the conversation and negotiation of, could you work with less? I mean, we intentionally raised it to 500,000. I like it at that level. It doesn't mean we have to award 500,000, but we have the option to. And we have.
I think you get very big impactful projects at that 500,000. I mean, some of those are new companies coming to Indiana that are spending millions. Not just, that match of the 500,000. So something to consider too.
Obviously, 500,000 doesn't go very far anymore.
That's the only problem.
We need to have
That's
a
the
million
big.
to educate the city of Indianapolis
Yeah,
on recycling. I mean, that,
But sometimes that 500,000 is a smaller, let's say this. That 500,000 is helping them less than 80,000 would help them.
oh, absolutely.
Do you know?
Well, I think there's also the conversation, I think, gets beyond just the dollar limit, but raising it to 500,000, we got more high quality applications. Now, that's great. We had a lot more confidence and I think we've gotten bigger impacts. Pair that with the conversation earlier today about, yeah, but why aren't we getting better quality applicants looking for $80,000? I think that's a separate conversation, but a really important one. And I would love for us to find a way to do something like that and have an incubator program. I mean, I keep thinking about that. There's one particular application where I think he had a great idea. He wasn't well enough prepared. He needed that kind of mentorship. And if he had that, whether it came from us or another program, I think he probably would have gotten awarded. So if we can, whether it's a partnership or we institute something new to help increase the quality of the applications that we're getting, then maybe at that point, I would say, yeah, let's lower it and focus more on those smaller, maybe more startup programs that are ready to be successful.
Does anybody follow up with these companies we give money to 2 or 3 years, 4 or 5 years later to see if they did what they said they were gonna do, and if they're being successful, and if it was a good investment?
Excited about that.
I literally, yeah, in my transitioning to Carl and Pam, I told them that that's an intern project that I'd love to see. I don't always have the time, right, to go back. I'm busy with the here and now, but I'd love to survey those people 2 to 3 years ago and see the impact that those projects have made. So,
And so these really innovative things, it's a
Yeah.
great idea. Did it work, or did they just bust and,
right.
go back to Alabama or wherever they came?
As a quick aside, thank you for allowing Pam Francis and the gentleman from Michigan to speak. That was great information for us, I think.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah,
It was actually your suggestion about Circular Indiana. So.
yeah, I remember that, so thank you.
So thank you for the suggestion.
Well, I think Debbie, you bring a good point. We need to maybe, I don't know that we need to change the limits as much as we need to change our mindset. And maybe get back to more conservative roots as far as, granting $500,000. Because a lot of times, if it's a $500,000 project or a request, it's gonna go forward. Whether we fund it by 50% or 75%. And, I don't wanna say we've been taking the easy way out, but we kind of made a commitment that if we're gonna fund a project, we're gonna fund it for the total ask. And, not go to that, can you take less? Those are the tough discussions that we debate amongst the whole group. So, maybe we need to get back to that, to be able to award more projects.
How many times we say, can you take less? And they say yes, almost every time.
Almost every time.
You know, if somebody's asking,
Give them more than they asked for. They know that. So they're, you know, so they're gonna ask it back, whether they need it or not.
but, you know, we look at this, the scoring metrics is, the scoring metrics is the driver. I mean, and if they blow that driver out of the water, they justify for the request. But we have to really look at that and say, is that the only component we need to consider? You know, what's the likelihood that if we offer them 400,000, they're gonna take it? And they can always turn it down when we say, okay, now we can fund a hell of a lot more projects.
And I think on some of those, when we asked, would you take less, they said yes, but I remember one, they said, well, we can take less, but we're not gonna be able to do this line over here that we
Yeah.
wanna do. So they did say they could take less, but they're not gonna be able to do exactly what they wanted to do, if I remember correctly.
We have been a few where like it's gonna impact their project to take less, but who's gonna say no to any amount of money?
That's, yeah.
I think
Right? They want the money, whether it's.
IU was one of those, I think, in the last round. Like, they said, yeah, we'll take less, but we're only gonna do it at one location instead of two
Mhm,
for the food composting
mhm.
project.
And I do think it's, you know, the larger applicants are the ones that are like, yeah, sure, we'll take less. I mean, it's a $4 million project, whether we get $400,000 or, you know, $500,000 kind of doesn't make a big difference. So it's a mix. I do think we have some that are like, yeah, sure, no problem. And then others where it's like, we can make it work, but it will change the scope of the project.
Mhm.
I think from Deanna and I's perspective, hopefully you'll agree with me. They do all their preparation based on their total ask. And then nothing matches up when they say, okay, I'll take less. Because then they have to go
It's
back.
very challenging
rework their
from an
model.
administrative perspective when they have line items that match certain dollar amounts and then we give them a random dollar amount and we don't fund it towards, okay, we'll fund these two pieces of equipment, but not this third piece of equipment.
Yeah.
Then to try to fit their projected budget into a grant agreement. I think that's where you're going with that. Yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
We've also had some at the end of our cycle that we've given, you know, $80,321.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
They made it work.
It made it work.
I think you raised a good point, Debbie, and I think we should all keep that in mind, but I still want that golden ticket out there in case we get the next big change that we may lose to Michigan, we may lose to Ohio, whatnot.
Yeah, and I do see that, you know, that 500,000 being a big carrot to dangle from some of those big companies that that'll make a big change in the economy in Indiana.
And before we raised it, I mean, we have had cycles where there weren't enough quality applications.
Yeah.
And that is a really crummy feeling to walk away saying we couldn't
We
dedicate
couldn't
all the
couldn't even
funds.
give away the money.
Yeah,
All right, any-
Sounds like we're keeping it for now. Okay.
Are you in agreement with that? Thank you.
Just appreciate this conversation and we just had.
Yeah, no, it was a good conversation.
Kind of what I wanted to say, but I.
well, and there's history that not everyone has
Yeah.
been a part of all of it, so it's
Mhm.
good to remember the history.
Eligibility, municipalities, solid waste management districts, nonprofits, higher education institutes, and public and private businesses located and doing business in the state of Indiana. I don't see a need for change in eligibility.
They haven't always been people who have been in Indiana, have they? Haven't we have some that have moved, they were moving in?
Right. Yeah,
But the.
Which I don't,
but their business, their project will be in the state.
The
of
project will
Indiana.
be in the state. I
Sure.
gotcha.
we have these priority materials, it's listed in the guidelines. I don't feel as a board do much around the priority materials. We don't really actually give extra consideration. I mean, I think we see the projects. And that they naturally, we have plastics coming, we have, organics. We probably don't see as much glass as we would like to see coming in, for funding, but so.
I think maybe to that, I mean, just suggestion, I'm not a voting member, I'm just an advisor, I guess. Is, looking at your scoring, I don't know when you guys last modified that, in any way to prioritize either what type of applicant, the type of material like Deanna's talking about, but kind of going back to what you were saying, Kelly, and what the next cycle presentation was sort of about, does somebody get extra points because they're municipal government over private industry?
3 years ago,
Or,
went through that strategic.
We did.
or they're solid waste management district, they get extra points because they're a management district over a private entity.
I think it might have already been 4 years ago, we had the big strategic planning session, and then we did revisit our strategic plan 2 years ago. Maybe last year? No, 2 years ago, yeah. And that's where these came from. And to the point that Carl's making, I do have, it's not quite, we're not on the bottom of the list I have up here, but I think that looking more closely, and this is a comment that I also took from Sandy here, but looking more closely at how the evaluation criteria aligns with the proposal criteria and maybe doing some changes to the evaluation criteria is needed. Obviously, it's not gonna be me, but I will make that recommendation if the board would like to see that as well. So that's one of those things where if in the proposal criteria, you still want to continue listing those priority materials, then maybe the alignment with the scoring or the evaluation is that there's additional points given for those materials.
I have a question for the board. With these priority materials and categories, where would you classify solar panels?
Electronics.
I can't hear you.
Electronics is what I would say. We just been discussing this. And I think maybe electronics also include, or maybe should be specified to say batteries, including batteries. And so,
Yeah, and obviously this is my field, so I'm in it, so I don't know, I have a skewed, opinion on this, but I see a big increase in solar and battery recycling in our future, whether that's critical in 2026, maybe, a couple of years down the road, it's more critical, but it's certainly, I'm seeing a lot of investment and a lot of new companies coming in to do that, and I think that that's an important area as we move forward.
Well, we need to classify as HHW, since, batteries are somewhat
That's
toxic.
different.
So maybe we open it up too, so we can hit, because I know the solar panels, I think, are gonna be an issue down the road, and batteries already are, we wanna open it up, so.
What I'm thinking is that July board meeting is usually kind of an open meeting where we either, visit a facility or have chance for strategic planning. So maybe that's time in July to do another strategic planning session and look at emerging waste streams like solar panels and others, because that definitely wasn't really on the radar when we came up with these initially.
Yeah, I think vape pens is another one that we've
Yeah.
been hearing a big increase in.
Yeah.
But I just recently went back to the new Recycle Force facility to see it and was talking with the folks there, and they're talking about opening a new facility just for recycling solar panels.
Yeah, Andrew told me that too. Yep.
Can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we have excluded anything that has come before us because of what kind of material they were recycling. Because of the low what I consider low recycling rate in Indiana. I think we've just kind of looked at anything that is a good project and it's a reuse of some material that we've not excluded anything. So unless we're maybe going to give priority points, like Carl said, for a specific material, I don't know how important it is to lay all those out.
Yeah.
I mean,
I agree. I think we maybe somewhat organically, when we're reviewing all the applications, say, oh, this is an area that's important. This has a lot of value because it's an emerging market, whether or not it's explicitly listed on this priority materials list.
right.
So I'm not proposing we change anything to that. I think we are kind of managing it.
Yeah, like we had the solar panel recycling project that we funded.
You did, yeah, the
Yeah.
ERI project. I didn't give this update earlier, but so that was the Central Indiana Waste Diversion Project.
Okay, yeah.
And, by statute, they have 4 years for those projects. And ERI has put a pause on that project,
Oh, no.
just because 2026, the federal funding is zero for those kinds of projects. And so they don't see the feedstock that they were originally anticipating when they came to the board. I think, like you said, not this year, but we're gonna see it in the next couple of years. So luckily, they have 4 years to still determine if they'll move forward on it. I think it'll still happen.
Yeah.
But this year's not the year for them to invest in that equipment yet. So just, yeah, to let you know, it's kind of put a pin in it. I did, for all the Central Indiana Waste Diversion projects, I didn't want to do 4-year grant agreements because that's a long time to string them out. So I did 2-year grant agreements and then, hopefully that one will be renewed for another 2 years. So,
I don't know that we need to change anything with regard to our
yeah,
priority materials. I think it's just important that we do focus on the future, whether it's, I mean, I'm sitting here thinking 2 days ago, we lost a brand new truck to a lithium ion battery. And I mean, $400,000 into the wind. It's because somebody's not treating their batteries correctly. And everybody's having that happen. So batteries are a concern, solar panels are a concern. And there will be new trends coming up that will be of immediate concern, and particularly with cabinets changing.
There is a bill that's been proposed for EPR batteries, so
yeah,
as to how should.
that is recognized in the state that that's an issue.
Yep,
There's a lot of other states that already have battery EPR, so hopefully.
the vape pens that you mentioned.
That's the lithium battery done.
Yeah,
That's the problem.
lithium ion and then the amount of nicotine in a vape pen is almost the level of a hazardous substance if it's not fully used.
And sometimes those things end up not nicotine.
So,
Yeah, we've been talking with Department of Education, Department of Health about vape pens because schools are confiscating them and we're trying to educate them to make sure that they're not becoming a hazardous waste generator under the regulations, so.
Yeah.
Cause they're not a household.
it doesn't take long.
Yeah,
Can I bring up one thing that's not related to the application? I love the idea from the next cycle, whatever the thing was, of having some sort of a networking event where past grant recipients are invited. And I don't know who would organize that, what that would look like, if that would be a meeting officially, or if it would just be a social thing, but I think that would be a super cool thing for us to better keep track of past recipients.
I
And,
love that idea.
they might also find partnerships through something like that.
Something like that would be nice, I think, to like tag on to either like maybe Circular Indiana's conference. Do like, instead of like the evening reception be like a separate evening reception with like past like grants or something that. Yeah, I like the idea.
I like tying it to that as well, because you have that at the government center, correct?
Mhm. I have no idea if it will be at the government center this year. But they haven't reached out to any of us yet.
You haven't locked that down before you bail?
That was a Pat Daniel thing. She was the one that signed that contract. So I'm gonna leave that up to Pamela here to work with Circular Indiana on. It was an interesting agreement. It's a little bit of a unique partnership to have an outside organization using state property and having us kind of sign off on that, those rooms.
I think it's proper time to involve the people who Kelly mentioned into that forum and to do those meetings. You know, make the connections.
Mhm.
That might make it less tenuous.
Sure, yeah.
Anything else?
So the other things aren't really, I mean, if you had, feedback, but it's just changes to the guideline or process that some of them we suggested last year ran out of time and resources, some, so like, hosting a webinar before or at the time we launched the RFPs, maybe providing some examples of what we're looking for, providing more guidance so that we get a good quality proposal. I definitely want, and this is more for my administrative ease, budget table right on the cover page with the entity's information. Instead of buried somewhere down into the proposal. And then, as I just mentioned, was looking more closely at how we score in the evaluation criteria and making sure that it really does align with the proposal criteria. I think that all the information are in the proposals, but you kind of have to read between the lines, right, with the evaluation criteria to see where they match currently.
Those all sound good to me.
Yeah. I'll make those recommendations.
Not Deanne's problem.
Very good. Anything else here? I believe we're at the end of our agenda. Any other issues anyone wants to bring up?
For one, I'm just gonna say I'm gonna miss Steve.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Appreciate it. I'll miss you guys.
I wish
I can't say enough what a great board this is. You guys are involved. You ask the right questions. You deeply care about how you.
I see you looking at me.
No, you guys, I didn't want to just look across. I mean, you guys are part of it too. No, you guys deeply care about the projects and that the money is spent appropriately. And you've been very easy to work with and you show up for every meeting and I really appreciate that.
It may not be the most formal, but I would guarantee we're most passionate about doing it the correct way. And I certainly appreciate the opportunity to work with everyone in this room, and particularly you, Deanna, over the last several years. So thank you very much.
how many times I've said, call Deanna, she knows the answer and she'll tell you straight out.
But we do all wish you the best. And we look forward to working with you, Pamela, correct? And
You'll see me around. I'm still gonna be in this world.
you better be.
Yeah.
Do we get invited to a sayonara happy hour?
I don't have anything planned. I don't know.
We're waiting on a train cart to roll in.
I don't know if you.
All right, nothing else, I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
I'll second it.
any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.